Hello and welcome to today's event, Strategies to Ensure the Success of a Work from Anywhere Culture in Government. This is Bob Woolley, Senior Fellow for the Center for Digital Government and formerly the Chief Technical Architect of the state of Utah. I'm excited to serve as moderator for today's event. Just want to say thank you for joining us. I know we're in for an informative session over the next 60 minutes. Before we begin, a couple of brief housekeeping notes, just to make you aware. A recording of this presentation will be emailed to all registrants within 48 hours. You can use the recording for your reference or feel free to pass along to colleagues. This webcast is designed to be interactive, and you can participate in Q&A with us by asking questions at any time during the presentation. You should see a Q&A box on the bottom left of the presentation panel. Please send in your questions as they come up throughout the presentation. Our speakers will address as many of these questions as we can during the Q&A portion of the close of our webinar today. If you'd like to download a PDF of the slides for this presentation, you can do so by clicking the webinar resource widget at the bottom of the console. Also, during today's webinar, you'll be able to connect with your peers via LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. Please use the hashtag GovTechLive to connect with your peers across the government technology platform via Twitter. At the close of the webinar, we encourage you to complete a brief survey about the presentation. We'd like to hear what you think. If you're unable to stay with us for the entire webinar, but would like to complete the survey as much as you're able, please click the survey widget at the bottom of the screen and launch the survey. Otherwise, it will pop up once the webinar concludes. At this time, we recommend you disable your pop-up players and disable your pop-up blockers. If you're experiencing any media player issues or have any other problems, please visit our webcast help guide by clicking on the help button at the bottom of the console. Joining me today to discuss this very timely topic are Murtaza Masood and Mohammed Al-Rawi. Murtaza is an innovative business leader with business transformation experience in public and private sector organizations. Named GovTech's 2019 Top 25 Doers, Dreamers, and Drivers, Murtaza is an enterprising visionary who drives innovation to make a positive impact on the people and organizations alike. As Box's Global Managing Director for State and Local Government, Murtaza is focused on helping public sector CIOs and executives realize their digital strategies using cloud content management. Mohammed is the Public Defender's first appointed Chief Information Officer. He oversees the strategic planning and modernization initiatives of information technology, information security, and data management for the office. He also provides vision and leadership in the development and implementation of technology, applications, and infrastructure supporting the department's more than 1,100 employee workforce, including the development and implementation of the client case management system, the largest digital transformation project in the history of the Office of the Public Defender. His leadership and advocacy for innovation was recognized by government technology. Mr. Al-Rawi was named one of the nation's top 25 doers, dreamers, and drivers. Mohammed Al-Rawi brings more than 16 years of experience in managing complex information technology operations in both the public and private sectors. Now, to set the stage today, I think all of us in government have experienced the joy of chasing documents around, trying to find the right version, trying to get approvals. Today's topic is one that I really enjoy, because as state and local government agencies continue to evolve their hybrid plans, they're working hard to ensure that their storage and communications platforms reflect the needs and reality of the current environment. They're also needing to provide security, workflow integration, and traceability for work products created by employees for internal and external purposes. Even though many agencies are planning a return to office in 2022, it doesn't mean a return to normal. State and local government leaders know a new work from anywhere culture is critical to success for the future, but they have questions about how best to support this shift. Today's speakers from the LA County Public Defender's Office and Box will be joining government technology to answer questions such as, what are some ways agencies can enhance content security and compliance in an evolving threat environment? How can cloud content management solutions support collaboration and productivity inside and outside the office? How does an integrated tech stack affect the continuity of services and work in the face of future disruption? Now, with that as a general stage set, let's now turn the time to Murtaza. Take it away.
Thank you, Bob, and good morning, everyone from California. I'm joining you from California, and I'm happy to discuss how Box can ensure that a work from anywhere strategy will work for your agency and government. We are at Box. We've learned that regardless of the industry you're in, or the size of your business, or the critical business processes that your employees collaborate within, you need a secure and user-efficient way of leveraging content and sharing information across the organization. We are proud to say that Box has been trusted by over 100,000 customers, which also represents almost 70% of the Fortune 500 companies, and specifically more than 10,000 government agencies trust Box with their documents and files for collaboration and secure. Whether you talk about states or city governments or county governments, we have built digital-first solutions. For instance, in town of Cary, Indiana, North Carolina, we have built a platform that connects all 1,200 employees, their departments, their other government agency collaborators, and citizens alike. For the Office of Attorney General in District of Columbia, we've helped in accelerating child support payments by integrating with their case management system and creating digital-only processes. And for London Met Police, we've eliminated the use of USBs and DVDs for evidence storage and sharing of such evidence with local authorities. We have been recognized year after year by analysts and industry observers for our leading cloud collaboration and content management platform, whether it be the Gartner Magic Quadrant or Forrester Wave or IDC MarketScape. Box's user-first and security and compliance-oriented cloud content management platform has ranked higher every year. So as the pandemic came upon us, and we were also experiencing a shift towards cloud first and mobile native strategies, we noticed that everything about how we work in the government has changed. Whether it's the trend towards employees wanting to work from anywhere, be it their home, remote sites, office sharing spaces, or their traditional office, using any device, the device of their preference, the browser of their preference, they would want to engage with the work processes in a digital-first strategy. At the same time, CIOs and CISOs like Mohammed are worried about securing that content, making sure that it fits the privacy and compliance regulations that all government agencies are subject to. We should take a look at the content, though. At the heart of all business processes and mission-critical objectives is the documents and the files that make that work happen. When we talk about content, we're talking about the unstructured content, which is locked in our documents, our PDF files, our videos, our audio files. Whether you're an employee trying to collaborate on documents, RFPs, contracts, case investigation files, HR files with other colleagues across your agency, or you're engaging citizens on the applications or the cases that they have filed with you, or working with other stakeholders across the county or city or state agency, both public sector and private sector partners who help you drive your business processes forward. Box is proud to offer a secure platform that unlocks that value. As we see proliferation of more and more cloud applications and platforms, we notice that content is getting more and more siloed and locked in specific applications. Whether we talk about legacy ECM systems, which are mostly on-premise still, storage files, when you collaborate using Sync and Share or other communication apps like Zoom or Teams, your files are being stored across disparate systems, and that is leading to redundancy and duplication and lack of ease of access. We tend to solve that problem by providing a platform that is cloud native, mobile first, and provides a single source of managing those files and documents securely. Having been in the industry for over 20 years, I'm happy to say that I've seen this trend evolve over time. Back in the 90s, and even prior to that, you had this movement towards central file storage. And what that solved was the basic file storage and management problem in an enterprise where users were able to put files and documents, whether they were part of a project or a case, on a secure server and allow each other to have access. What it did not solve was ease of use or collaboration or pervasive access for that matter. Then came along a big leap, especially in the mid to late 90s, towards enterprise content management, which solved that basic problem of collaboration, security, and compliance in an enterprise scale manner. However, it still left something to be desired when it came to integration with mission critical applications, line of business applications, and ease of collaboration from anywhere, any device. Coinciding with this trend, you saw mobile first applications come out. You saw cloud taking off in the 2010s, in the last decade or so. And there's a need that Box has fulfilled, which is to provide a secure platform for the entire content journey, including a user-friendly application set that allows you to collaborate and access content. So whether it's from the point of ingestion or creation, we securely protect your files by classifying them, allowing you to put retention policies on them, managing access rules using Box Shield, collaborate with your favorite tools, whether it's Google Docs or Microsoft Office, automate them using workflow, collaborate with signature workflows, publish them, access them anywhere, at the same time allowing administrators to have complete insight into content metrics and usage methodologies, and then extending that platform into your favorite applications using over 1,500 integrations with things like Salesforce, Google Workspace, Office 365, Nintex, etc. So whether you are using our best-of-class first-party applications through the web or our desktop client or our native mobile application, or interacting with the content through one of our 1,500 plus integrations, or building custom experiences for your employees and partners using our API, the best-of-class content management features, security, workflow, and e-signature capabilities are exposed alike. And this allows you to scale as well as have a single source of truth, if you will, for your documents, and rest assured that you're meeting your PII, HIPAA, or CMS compliance requirements using our governance modules. So in short, Box attempts to provide frictionless security and compliance for all your content, regardless of file types, regardless of the media format, and empower your people so that they can experience the ease of use and seamless collaboration as they participate in mission-critical workflows while connecting your entire business application suite so that you don't have to create information silos or redundancies. One such client that we're proud to have with us today is the LA County Public Defender, with whom we've worked in the last few years to digitize and help digitize and modernize their content journey using Box and integrate with their case management system for litigation and other purposes. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Bob.
Thank you, Murtaza. That was a great overview. I really appreciate it. So as we begin this discussion, Mohammed, let's start with a question for you. With the Public Defender's Office being the biggest and most complex indigent defense law firm in the nation, I can just barely imagine the transformation mandated by the current global pandemic. Can you shed some light on this journey and what's happening now?
Sure. Thank you, Bob. Appreciate the opportunity to join the conversation today on this very important topic. We all have gone through an unprecedented shift, which has been driven by this global pandemic. And as you know, Bob, digital transformation is not a new movement in government. It actually started as early as the 70s, but historically, the imperative for digital transformation was to implement a supplemental tool for operations, a system that is primarily archiving and retrieving information. And before this pandemic, many of the analog business processes, pre-electricity business processes that existed in state and local government remained to be the primary method for providing government services. And in most cases back then, when IT availability was impacted, there was always a primary paper or manual process to get the job done. Comes March 16, 2020, that everlasting status quo, business as usual narrative has changed literally overnight. And as I said before on other government tech platforms that we have conversations on, that week marked the first proof in recent history where paper and manual processes can be disrupted. I really think that this is the first time that we witness paper services down. And that shift, where paper was always considered the primary and the trusted service delivery tool, was seriously challenged. And in that moment created a massive historical and cultural change in the state and local government. And we all now realize that during this pandemic, every service in state and local government has been delivered through some means of technology, from video conferencing, Exhibit A, to cloud-based content management and collaboration platforms. But here at the Public Defender's Office, our business, without planning, preparation, or extensive organizational change management, place IT as the primary, if not the single tool to do business. And in a matter of days, we fully adopted the use of collaboration platforms and automation tools. AI and ML all of a sudden is no longer a witchcraft. It's been a huge leap in the transformation, journey of the Public Defender's Office. Back to you, Bob.
Yeah, it's really interesting because one of the issues in government is we have to transform and perform at the same time. That can be a challenge. So what are the challenges you addressed in the journey of transforming from analog to digital? That's an interesting problem.
Yep. So, as you mentioned earlier, Bob, we are the largest public defender office in the nation, with 1,200 attorneys and legal experts handling more than 140,000 felony and misdemeanor cases a year. The amount of data we generate is massive. And just a couple of years ago, our case information resided on 23 different legacy systems, the main of which was a 1960s COBOL. And per my previous comment, decades ago, those legacy systems were built as a tool to track and archive and retrieve cases. So the result we had is an accumulation of a case-centered data repository. And, for me coming here, what makes sense for a criminal defense firm is our systems, our data structure has to become client-centered because we represent clients, we don't represent cases. Now, the challenge we had in hand is 160 million records from a COBOL system and paper that were 100% case-centered, needed to be converted to be a client-centered. So we basically had to reverse engineer decades worth of data entry and restructure our records to become people-centered. Then COVID hit. And on top of the daunting task of modernizing a century worth of data, meeting the unprecedented demand as technology became the only tool for conducting business was a huge challenge. And, we needed to move very quickly and in the meantime adequately address security. But, the silver lining here, Bob, we were able to move at least 7 years forward in a matter of few months. We currently handle criminal case life cycle from arraignment till disposition, fully transactional and digital. Back to you, Bob.
Thank you. So one of the other issues that comes up, or we've seen a lot of trends nationally coming out of the pandemic. So Murtaza, how do these trends become a consideration for a successful digital strategy?
Talking to my colleagues in government IT and government administration across the nation, what I'm realizing is that what started out as crisis management is now is pivoting towards a sustainable work from anywhere digital trend. Another trend that we're noticing is that the citizens are now more and more comfortable in engaging with services on digital first, and in some cases, digital-only platforms. So whether that's interacting with social services, health services, through portals or through custom apps, or applying for county, state jobs, city jobs over the internet and using portals or custom apps for that. The trends are very prominent that we are not going to go back to the old way of doing business or delivering services to citizens. So when we look at those across the nation, the question becomes, how do we take those traditional paper-intensive and physical presence-oriented experiences and turn them into modern, digital-first, and perhaps cloud and mobile-only platforms and solutions?
Very helpful. Mohammed, do you have any comment on this?
Yeah, so Murtaza touched on the technology piece, but I also wanted to shed some light on the planning and execution, especially when the biological clock here in government is entirely different than the biological clock in private sector. Things tend to take much longer time, but during the pandemic, things needed to move quickly. So the first step we needed to ensure is we have really, well-planned execution and readiness plan, because we needed to get executive not only to have buy-in and digital-first strategy, but actually fully understand and be aware what it means in terms of operations. And Bob, you've done this longer than both of us. Binary is easy, but people is hard. So from the first line management here all the way to the top level executive, they needed to be ready for that change where now they're going to be conducting business and shift their business model completely electronically and remotely. And that itself was, I would say, the other side of the challenge where we needed to move things quickly. Just literally now to keep the lights on. It's not a convenience tool anymore. It's an essential tool.
Good point. One of the things that we observed in the state of Utah is we wound up having to go through the entire Utah Code and administrative rules and remove all the analog requirements. As you might suspect, that took a moment or two. In an office like yours, how do you address issues relating to records preservation and integrity and local archival requirements for documents that may in fact still be analog?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Let me start with telling you what's the legal obligation for document retention. So our legal obligation is to retain case records throughout the life of the client that we represent. So in other words, indefinitely. So digital records in the recent time during the pandemic became, quickly accepted in the justice ecosystem. And there was no option for someone to go to an office to retrieve a document to have the physical copy. So we went to the alternative digital one. That shift first resulted in seizing the rapid growth of our physical document repositories. As we know, can scan and destroy. You don't need to scan and retain. And with a platform like Box, on top of the unlimited storage that we get, because you can imagine the sheer amount of data that we generate with that caseload that we have, it offered a robust record retention configurations that really helped us transform our record management and comply with not only state and legal mandates, but also operational expectations. And we could quickly, using those tools, shift to be fully digital very rapidly.
Very helpful. Murtaza, do you have any comment on this?
Yeah, I would just build on that compliance and security aspect of it. So it's not just enough to enable end users with collaboration and file management and document management features. As CIOs look towards cloud-first strategies, they need to also worry about compliance regimes or requirements based on their use case, whether you're talking about HIPAA requirements for healthcare and life sciences, use cases in government, or CGIS for evidence management and public safety, as Mohammed has outlined. Box enables you to provide retention management, reporting, as well as access tracking and management using Shield, seamlessly across all your document management needs.
Very helpful. So when we look at the idea of a digital first workflow, and Mohammed, I'm wondering, how has productivity been affected across your department? What does the new workforce model look like, and how does Box help with that?
Yeah, so Bob, criminal cases are extremely complex. A felony or a misdemeanor case can involve many areas of expertise, including mental health, immigration, homelessness, forensic, etc. All of those workflows used to be done through email or paper referrals. We actually had physical drop-in boxes to move cases from one team to another. Now, these physical boxes were replaced with Box.com. So not only that the product was significantly flexible to meet our complex business requirement to route those documents to the right place, but the name Box helped with change management as well. As at PD, we love boxes. And all we did here, we said, we're not getting rid of your box, we're just changing the physical box with a logical box. So that helps significantly with moving things forward.
One of the things that you've noted earlier, and I think we've all seen it, any system involves platform, processes, and people. So we've got a great platform we're talking about. We've got obviously some well-defined processes. Let's move to the people side of this. In an organization the size of yours, how has digitization affected your attorneys and paralegals? How have processes improved or changed? And really, how well were the changes in workflow implemented? How did all this contribute to the agency's mission? I know when we contributed exchange just to email in the state of Utah, I had to go out and visit with executive director secretaries to make sure their emails would come over good and they felt good about it. And that was a highly analog process. Tell me what you did.
Absolutely. You know what, Bob, I would like to share with you a real example of that one of the attorneys just recently shared with me of the impact of this digitization to the process, to our legal business. When we implemented our client case management system, we integrated Box.com with probation department systems and with the prosecutor department systems to receive case-related files electronically, and it happens real time. So fast forward, we launched the system. One of the felony trial attorneys was looking at his client case, and he noticed a new file pop up in his client's probation folder. That report inside that folder showed that his client had a probation violation. Now, obviously, that client is out of custody and he was put on probation conditions. So there was a probation violation. The lawyer on the same system checked on the client calendar, which that information comes from state system, completely different from probation. And he noticed that there was a bench warrant event was placed for his client to appear in 10 days. Based on that information, our attorney called his client immediately, and his client had no clue this happened. He then connected the client with a paralegal from our office who helped him to make up for the probation conditions that he missed. The client showed up to court with our attorney on time, provided the judge with a document showing that he's back on track. Judge commends him and sends him home. Now, this might sound like a simple outcome, but for decades, Bob, without these integrations and collaboration across the justice agencies and having information available at the attorney's fingertips in real time, that client most likely wouldn't have known about this issue at all, or maybe would know that there is a bench warrant appearance, and he would appear without knowing the details of the violation. And in most cases, he would have been placed in county jail for a few weeks until he's reminded of what conditions he needs to meet. And within that time, he most likely would lose his job and, ultimately his home because of that. So those digital collaborations that we built across the justice agencies are really, truly saving lives and reducing massive issues that we have, which is unemployment and homelessness. Back to you, Bob.
Thank you. So Murtaza, I'm going to go back to you on a topic you just barely introduced, because I think this is one that really matters to all of our audience. In fact, it's showing up as an audience question. Talk to us a little bit more about the compliance standards that Box meets, because having implemented FedRAMP, CJIS, and some of those other standards, some of that's very much non-trivial. Give us a little more insight into that, if you would.
Sure. So Box does meet many industry-based standards, and for government specifically, we are currently FedRAMP Medium, working towards our FedRAMP High certification that is forthcoming shortly this year. And among other compliance matrices, we can spend a whole day discussing the intricacies involved, but in short, when you combine our Shield classification engine, which automatically allows you to classify content, then apply the right access policies, security policies, down to watermarking, preventing downloads, or preventing external or internal collaboration, as the case may be, and then putting retention policies on them, including legal hold and legal freeze if necessary. That package together on a single unified content management platform on the cloud enables you to then be certified or be compliant with HIPAA, CJIS, PII, PCI, or any other compliance, records management, retention management compliance regime that you need to comply with.
Very helpful. Mohammed, I've got another question for you, and this is also coming up from our audience. It's kind of an interesting follow-up question. You've implemented this work well within the department over which you have control, but you undoubtedly talk to many agencies where you have no such control. How do you bridge that gap, and what kind of problems have you run into? In the state of Utah, we had one welfare services app that touched 180 different data stores. That got complicated. Talk to me.
Yeah, so part of the role of the CIO here to be effective is to find synergies and find imperatives to connect, business outcomes. Even if the departments that you're working with is a department that you can't really collaborate, you kind of have a conflict of interest with. And as I mentioned, prior to the pandemic, conversations with the former district attorney that we had to do things like e-discovery was ended in like the first few seconds. This is not going to happen. People will continue to be the way. Then COVID hit, and everyone is now realizing that we need to rethink the way we do business. And that was like a Trojan horse where we started doing really just very simple end user type of Box file sharing between us and the district attorney. So we did not implement any interfaces, but we did like a very gradual step to move forward. And what we did is we created accounts for the district attorney, and they started sharing with us through Box some documents. A few months in, everyone who, as you know, in government, gauge the risk and see what risk needs to be mitigated, have seen that this tool is nothing but a good for, both the public defender and the district attorney. So we moved forward into really creating a middleware. And for the first time in 107 years, our systems talk to each other. So the district attorney, with a click of a button from their own content management system, can share related case files when the cases are assigned to us, through our box and our client case management system. So it's a it's a journey, but as long as you do it in gradual step, and of course we had a big impact on COVID that moved things much faster.
It's very interesting. One of the things I've observed in government is greater use of APIs that many people can then call. Are you using a similar methodology to let others in?
Yeah, and that's what we ended up doing. We established really robust APIs. One of the things I love about Box is the how flexible it is. As I tell my friends at Box, it's like the Red Hat of storage. You have a lot of flexibility to expose and share and receive data. So the flexibility of Box really enabled us when we had the momentum, because things change in government. When we had the momentum and there was an agreement at the table, quickly after, within a few weeks, we could implement very robust APIs and started exchanging files.
Very helpful. So let's take a look at some. Please.
Sorry. Just to chime in, to echo what Mohammed was sharing with us, I've found that that expanded use of value that Box enables is very pertinent to a lot of our state and county and city agencies, where just simple, starting footprint with retiring of file servers, just moving your file shares into Box, and then eventually and gradually, but in a very planned and strategic manner, integrate that content into your business mission critical workflows and line of business applications. That agility that Box enables you de-risks this type of deployment. You don't have to go big bang. You can start with just document collaboration and then build your value proposition from there.
Very helpful. So let's take a look at some move forward strategies. All of us like to see things get done. We like to see things move forward. So Murtaza, what do you think has changed on a somewhat permanent basis in enterprise technology and enterprise strategy, whether it's cultural, technical, risk, business continuity, or some other aspect? What are the big changes?
That's a great question. I think at the basic, human level, ground level, I think expectations have changed. Expectations that employees have in government agencies of being able to do work and how to do that work. Expectations that citizens have of their government and how they consume those services have changed. So what that is leading to are just permanent changes in creating services for both employees and citizens alike, and then engaging our partners, whether it's working with other agencies across the county or across the state, or with the citizens in exchanging files and documents. So we are seeing that CIOs and mission security officers alike are focused on enabling that collaboration, that open access to information and documents, but at the same time, they are now taking security and compliance to the front edge, where if you're uploading a document, it is getting scanned for malware right there and then, and so that the business doesn't stop. I think enabling the business of government is now front and foremost as far as a key trend goes.
It's an interesting thing. Mohammed, do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, the one that I want to expand and add on is the cultural, shift. And in my opinion, this is one of the biggest ones, especially the relation, and this is in state and local government specifically, the relationship between IT and business continuity. IT before the pandemic was not the sole tool for providing services, and it rapidly became it. And it just organically started to bring the IT executives to the tables that they didn't have a seat at in the past, because now you are a service delivery, so you need to be at the table at all times. So that's one of the things that I have noticed across the board, regardless of what organization, what department, what services have quickly shifted to become.
One of the interesting things we've seen across the country when you look at all state agencies and municipal agencies is there's a very big trend in some of the leaders in the country to make data open by default. When you get into courts, that becomes a mite more complex. How do you deal with people's resistance to share data? Mohammed, what have you done with that?
So, I work with public defenders. Public defenders are professional skeptics. So your sales strategy has to be extremely bulletproof because they're really smart and they can always find loopholes to push back on things. But I can tell you, with COVID, it was not a matter of why are we doing this, and it just that moment where attorneys they were working from home and they could not go to the office to get their case files, created that shift, that change, where they said, okay, I need to now learn how to use technology because I don't know when I'll be able to go back to my office. And that was a big impact to having more channels of conversations, Bob. But of course, and this is something Murtaza touched on earlier, is how when you move, you make very calculated moves to maintain the trust and be sure that you're successful, because now you can't make at least big mistakes when everyone is depending on you to try new things and shift the business process. So a combination of what the situation mandates and positive outcomes of digital transformation worked hand in hand to get more buy-in for more collaboration into changing the way we do business.
Thank you. Murtaza, did you have any comment on that same topic? I'm sure you've seen a lot of patterns.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think that is one of our favorite kind of parts of adopting new technology. I think Mohammed touched upon the scale. One of the box values we are very proud of is 10xing our scale. So whether it's having the ability to host petabytes of data, hundreds of millions of documents, and large files alike, as well as smaller files, that scale then allows you to de-risk your migration strategy or your cloud migration platforms. And the other thing I would like to highlight in that sense is the change management piece. Because we are focused on the user experience, almost to an obsession, whether it's our mobile application or cloud app, our web app, the ease of use with which a user can adopt Box allows you to move faster and be more nimble in responding to challenges.
It's a very good point. I've noticed that change management sometimes can be an impediment in government to getting things done. So another question for you, Mohammed, as an IT leader and during this big operational change due to the global pandemic, how did your focus and priorities shift, including changes of technologies? And as a specific follow-up on that, what did you do when you ran into issues with networking, data, and things that you just weren't expecting to have to deal with?
That's another venting question. So I would say many shifts, but the most important one was finding the right balance between security, privacy, and rapid deployment of practical digital tools. It is a trilemma that we had in the past. It existed before, but it's quite different today. Like all changes we witnessed in the past 2 years, the narrative of the need for transforming our business shifted from, is it possible, to become how and how fast. And we really had to make fast decisions, rapidly select and deploy solutions, and in the meantime, maintain that security alignment as we are quickly shifting things and opening things up. But the thing that helped, the risk of not digitally transforming business and state and local government today is entirely different from the past. As you know, Bob, security and privacy was the first thing that comes to the conversation, and it quickly becomes a roadblock. And now all of a sudden this went to the back, and the notion is security must keep up with the change. We're moving forward, security team, work with the implementation team and find a way to make things as secure as possible, because the other risk that we have is completely disrupted business continuity. Bob?
Interesting. So one of the other questions I have is when we're dealing with the distributed workforce, it has architectural implications. So what are the key technologies your employees need to support remote work, and how did you go about making sure they could do it?
Yeah, so literally a few months before the pandemic, we have completely decommissioned our data centers, and we moved, our systems from on-premise to private and public cloud. We routed our justice partner systems that we could not control to be accessible securely via SSL VPN. And we finally replaced all of the desktops with laptops. So on March 16th, 2020, 90% of our workforce were fully operational from home. What we didn't anticipate, and I am sure a lot of the attendees here who run IT operations in government have faced the same dilemma, is the employees' home equipment, home internet and Wi-Fi capacity. My help desk operations needed to troubleshoot home routers, personal and home printers and scanners, and even really tell attorneys how to connect to Wi-Fi and what it means and whether the routers has Wi-Fi or not. So they needed to look at the model number and Google things up. We really had to quickly create a completely new standard operating procedure for our infrastructure and operations. And we had to include how-tos and manuals and troubleshooting steps for personal hardware. So even though we're so ready for a pandemic, my boss jokingly a couple of times told me that you guys have something to do with COVID because we were so prepared on March of 2020. But that was something that we did not see coming, where we needed to learn how to fix home routers and home Wi-Fi and home printers.
Very, very interesting. Murtaza, do you have a comment on this? I'm sure you've seen some interesting things here as well.
Yeah, along with the crisis response itself, I think part of it was growing new habits. What I've observed in talking to CIOs like Mohammed across the nation is, the IT organization had to shift its approach to support and new projects and new initiatives, along with the business learning how to work in distributed teams and remote teams. So that also lent itself to HR reimagining policies, that redefining what does it mean to show up to work, right, for government across the nation, as well as how do you measure work and how do you enable that work. Beyond just the technology tools and tool sets, it's the definition of work, the measurement of work, and then what does productivity look like in this new normal.
Really good points. And one of the other follow-up issues that has come up across the country on this same topic, and let me just address this to Mohammed first, the issue of remote-based access control. How do you ensure that the employees coming in remotely are getting to what they need and not what they don't?
So we, as I told you, we have 23 different systems, right? So 23 different systems had at least a dozen different identity management tools. So I would say 30% of my help desk tickets was resetting passwords because no one could remember all these passwords. So what we did is we collapsed 23 different systems into Salesforce Inbox. And then we shifted everything, including our SSL VPN and the regular VPN, into single sign-on. So there's only one identity that is managed by Office 365 and Azure AD. And then there are literally two screens that they need to go to. If they want to retrieve information from a state system, they go to the green screen. And if they want to retrieve information related to public defender system, they go to the 21st century cloud-based screen. So the amount of training with collapsing systems together and reducing user interfaces helped a lot with the UX here and with quick adoption.
Very interesting. So to conclude our panel discussion, I want to conclude with one question before we move to audience Q&A, and that is, let's start with Murtaza and then Mohammed, if you'd follow up. What recommendations do you have for IT leaders in public sector who are going through the same journey and challenges?
No, that's a great question. I think the look ahead is also kind of overshadowed, if you will, by this consideration of crisis management. Historically, as I was growing up in IT, in government IT, we always were prepared for crisis, but we still had this concept of a crisis being finite in length and time. What this pandemic has taught us is that we may find ourselves in a continuous operational mode where things are being redefined as a new normal, both from a healthcare pandemic perspective, but also how do we do work within a government agency. So as you look ahead, I would say pay attention to security being an enabler, and to echo Mohammed, less of a blocker, right? And how do you make sure that your employees have the tools, the systems, the information, where they are? So the work assets and technology has to meet the worker where they are, wherever they might be. And same thing for citizens. I think we see a big shift towards modernization of government services, cloud platforms, digital platforms. So we are going towards an on-demand government. I think those two trends combined will define the next 5 to 10 years for how we deliver as CIOs, how we deliver government technology.
Thank you, Murtaza. Mohammed, same kind of question. What recommendations do you have on this journey?
Yeah, so Bob, the recommendation I have for my counterparts, my colleague who manage IT operations in state and local government is, I think all of us will realize the massive momentum for growth of technology in government. And I would like to seize this opportunity to urge every IT leader and manager, as we are all in, all hands on deck trying to shift things rather rapidly, is also to take a moment to seize that opportunity. And a couple of areas that I would really highly recommend for my colleagues to spend some time and effort on is, one, to recalibrate the IT role in our organization. Starting with the basics. Example would be your service level agreements. Pre-COVID SLA definitions are no longer applicable today. Pre-pandemic high priority tasks could delay a specific aspect of the business, but with all services completely reliant on technology today, high priority IT tasks could literally translate into saving lives. Align your SLA justifications with the business impact. The business impact of your IT delivery is completely different now, and it is the time to establish the narrative for the zero tolerance of interruptions or delays in addressing high priority tasks and deliverables. And the second area is, we've got to start defining risk before the opportunity during the budget conversation. Our agencies provide services that cannot be disrupted, and risk mitigation of those services inherently became the top priority when it comes to fiscal appropriation. Pre-COVID IT fiscal arguments of efficiency and enhancement, why we need to do this, is no longer the only catalyst to get funding. You know, while IT historically provided support to keep the lights on, mainly for internal staff to do business. But post-COVID, technology in one way or another is the constituent service delivery vehicle. So deficit in IT today could translate into direct disruption of critical government services to the residents themselves. So we've got to highlight that narrative first, then go back and do the things that we do best, which is illustrating the efficiencies and the enhancements that we can bring to the business process. You know, I cannot emphasize enough the importance of this narrative, Bob. State and local agencies provide services from issuing a birth certificate to issuing a death certificate and every critical services in between. And today's enablement of IT, for the first time, at least in my career, in every single case, directly impacts those services. And it is imperative that we redefine and establish this major change in the IT role in our organization. Back to you, Bob.
Thanks so much, Mohammed. Since we're getting close to the end of our time today, let's jump right into some questions from the audience. Some of you have been asking about getting copies of today's presentation. Within the next 48 hours, Government Technology will provide all attendees with a link to the recording for your reference or to share with colleagues. Well, let's go to our first question. And we have one here on VDI that's kind of interesting. So did you look at virtual desktop initiatives, and did that play a role of any kind? Mohammed?
Absolutely. So this was, I had the, you know, I was very fortunate to be part of this journey at the county. And years ago, from a Board of Supervisors level, we had the support and the mandate to virtualize our environment. So I would say about 8 years ago, the County of Los Angeles went from 49 different data centers with massive footprint of physical servers into highly virtualized, high-density server environment. And that allowed us to consolidate all the county 49 data centers into one. And we went from, if I remember correctly, 64,000 square feet of raised floor. We went down to 10,000 square feet or less. So we, me as a CIO, I was so fortunate to have the opportunity to work on this project at a macro level. And then when I moved on to the departmental level, at a micro level, I could benefit from that enterprise shift that we had at the county. And we could move things forward. So definitely, every single eCloud server that we have is virtualized.
Okay, very helpful. Mohammed, here's another question for you as well. This is maybe focused a little more on your organization. Does the Public Defender's Office adhere to the county's goal of improved outcomes with the whole person at the center of that outcome? How does data sharing help achieve that whole person focus?
That's a great question, and I touched on it a little bit, talking about people, making our data to be people-centered, and inherently we had systems that track process and cases, and then as our policymakers throughout the past few decades progressed to be focusing on people and whole person care, it really helped significantly. People like me, like my director here, our public defender, is to really shift that past history of focusing on cases and not really focusing on people. So that was one of the main areas why we could secure significant funding to transform our legacy systems into Box.com and Salesforce, and do that massive journey of data conversion. Is the expectation that we have from our board, from the Board of Supervisors, is you need to give me a longitudinal view of my constituent and show me how you are making their lives better how are you helping them in any type of service that we provide across the 37 departments that we have. So definitely it's not only are we addressing the vision and the direction that the Board of Supervisors expect of us, it was the main reason why we could get the support and the funding to move this project.
Well, thanks so much, Mohammed. I want to be respectful of our 1 hour commitments. We'll have to wrap it up here. In closing, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us for today's event. A big thank you goes to my fellow speakers, Murtaza and Mohammed, and a special thanks to our partners at Box for enabling us to bring this worthwhile discussion to our audience. Thanks once again, and we look forward to seeing you again soon at another government technology event.